The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
This is Gerard with episode number 51 of Florida's Fresh Mix on the Florida Podcast Network, a random mix of Florida's freshest personalities. Listen in, y'all. Hello, Fresh Mixers. Listen, guys, I know that Amber usually takes the reins here, but I'm too excited. I'm not letting her get a word in edgewise because we've interviewed Lynn McNutt, who has made a living doing something that's so close to my heart, near and dear to my heart. She's made a living as an actress, a singer, a dancer, so many things that I love. Oh, Amber, thank you so much for bringing Lynn into my world. I really appreciate it. And so I just wanted to give you props.
Well, honestly, Gerard, you can go ahead and give those props to your sister, Jemmy. Yeah, producer Jemmy. I don't know if she knows Lynn personally, but they have a mutual friend, a mutual connection, who actually referred Lynn to the show. So shout out to Jemmy, shout out to that friend. I don't remember your name, but you were in the email thread.
Fantastic. Well, shout out to my younger sister, producer Jemmy. Shout out to the friend. Shout out to Lynn for agreeing to be here with us. And I was just so happy to talk about the performing arts, which I love. And basically, I love the whole spectrum of performing arts. And it's interesting talking to her because she's still performing, but she's also a professor now. I mean, she really knows her craft and she's so bubbly and happy. It was just a joyous interview.
Absolutely, Gerard. It was such a fun conversation. And like you said, Lynn has such a bubbly personality, a lively attitude, a true thespian, a true theater kid. And I mean that in the best way possible. Please do not take any offense to that. And she came on the show to talk about her one-woman show. It's called Blue, a Rhapsody in Blubber. Great title.
I know. It's a great title, which makes perfect sense once you know what it's about and how it came about and the themes that she's trying to promote in it. It's different than what you think just the title might suggest. But once you know what's up, then you're like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It's actually super, super cool. I think that was one of my favorite parts of this conversation, Gerard, when you guys started talking about this show that she's putting on, she's starring in, a solo theatrical experience. She plays 3 different characters. I'm not gonna expose too many details just right now, but 3 different characters, people, and one of them is a whale. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say. If you want to get tickets to see this and you live in the Boca, Delray, South Florida area, this performance is premiering on May 5th. And it'll be through the 14th. So you can find all those links to the show notes to get those tickets. But definitely feel free to hear Lynn herself. It's a great conversation about just expression, really. So I'm excited for you all to hear it. Gerard, before they hear it, tell people about GoGo.
So listen, as our devoted Fresh Mixers already know, for the past 3 years, I've proudly served on the board of directors of Guitars Over Guns. GoGo is an incredibly impactful nonprofit organization that offers students from disadvantaged communities in Miami, Chicago, and Los Angeles a powerful combination of music education and strong mentoring relationships with professional musicians to help them overcome hardship, find their voice, and reach their potential as tomorrow's leaders. Please head to the show notes for more information and, most importantly, to donate. See, we're here talking about the performing arts. Got to start them young, get them involved.
Exactly. Wow, Gerard, great full circle right there. But seriously, people, you can always find that link in our show notes. Go donate for a great cause. One more announcement before we roll in this interview. If you've enjoyed listening to Florida's Fresh Mix podcast, please feel free to rate and review us on Apple Podcast. That does this really cool thing to the algorithm, which leads other potential listeners to our show. So we want more Floridians like you to listen to Gerard and these great Floridians and get to know your state better. So
Exactly. Our state gets a lot of crap, Amber, and we're doing something positive here with a lot of positive, interesting, inspiring people. So it's a burden, yes, but we want to get the word out that Florida, there's so much good in Florida, and we just want to talk that up. Big ups to Florida. No one ever
Big
says
ups
that.
to Florida. We're trying, people. We're trying to make the best of it out here, okay? All right. Well, please enjoy this wonderful conversation between Gerard and Miss Lynn McNutt.
All right, my fresh mixers. I am super excited about this guest for personal reasons. I have to admit, we've got someone here who has over 25 years of experience as a professional actress and singer. Someone who has lived in New York City as a working actor, not a starving actor, but as a working actor for over 14 years. And now Lynn is an educator and also is writing plays. And I want to talk about all of these things. This is Lynn McNutt. How are you today, Lynn?
I am great. How are you, Gerard?
I'm doing fantastic, as I love theater. So yes, I'm super excited about this interview for personal reasons. I was a little child actor. I did tons of commercials when I was like I think 7, 8 years old in North Carolina, and since then I've done everything I could to be on stage, whether it be dancing, singing, all the plays I could grab up. I mean, I was in middle school. I was Kaniki in Grease, and we did Guys and Dolls and Mame. And I could go on and on. But this interview isn't about me. I just wanted to tell you.
No way. That is fantastic.
And by the way, I was actually I think this was 8th grade. I was Macbeth in Macbeth.
Oh, wow.
It was such a great experience because I know that you teach some Shakespearean theater as well. And
yeah, that's how I got my my master's degree in DC at the Shakespeare Theater, specifically for acting heightened language texts, Shakespeare, the Greeks, and even Oscar Wilde, anything that's the language is sort of heightened, And one of my first gigs that I had, like one of my very first teaching jobs, I did a 20-minute version of Macbeth with 8-year-olds.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
And they were amazing.
So let's dive into your very prolific, amazing background, because you've actually done this professionally. I have not. That's why I'm so jelly right now. And I want to talk about the real world of real acting and making it a living. When did you know that you had a passion for being on the stage?
Oh gosh. I was actually very shy until I was in 6th grade. And there were these 2 guys in my class, and they were like the class clowns. And they were always cutting up, and, everybody was, would crack up at them and everything. And I thought, God, that looks like a lot of fun. And so I started joking around with them and, getting in on the act, so to speak. And then people, would laugh. And then I thought, well, this isn't that scary. Like there's no need to be shy. You can speak up and nothing actually dangerous, or scary happens to you. People laugh or appreciate what you say,
It's amazing when you have that epiphany that the stage fright doesn't have to be a thing,
Yeah. I mean, it's always there. I mean, I deal with nerves on a regular basis, but you learn how to sort of flip them to the other side as more of excitement and adrenaline, and can use them to your advantage, actually. But yeah, I want to say it was around 6th grade that I started thinking, this is fun. And then I took, a little, drama elective class and played a Martian and, loved that. And then we got this newfangled thing called HBO, and loved the HBO. And one of the things that came on HBO were the old movie musicals.
Oh, right.
My Fair Lady, Singing in the Rain, South Pacific, all of those. And I was hooked. I probably watched My Fair Lady. I mean, 100 times. And then I just decided it was around like that, sort of middle school age that I just decided, no, this is what I want to do.
Is My Fair Lady your favorite?
Yes.
Okay. See, I want to really focus on seeing all the shows that I haven't seen yet, because they're all good. I mean, they're all so good.
Yeah.
You're never disappointed. But I do have a special affinity for Grease. Not only having played Kaniki, but also because in the theater version, Kaniki gets to sing Grease Lightning.
Grease Lightning.
As opposed to Danny Zuko. Yeah.
Yes.
So I got to sing
and
that song.
It's such a fun show. It's fun. Kind of little funny story. I was finally, so, my favorite, musical, which it's rare to say that. Most people are like, oh God, I have so many favorites. And it's true. But I've always just loved the writing. I thought the writing of My Fair Lady was, it's Shaw, so it's brilliant. And then, the music is brilliant. And but there's no role in there for me. I'm a character actor. And so I'm like, why am I in love with this show that, I'm never going to be in? Well, this was about, I don't know, 10 or 11 years ago, I was cast as Mrs. Pierce, who's the head housekeeper in My Fair Lady with Terrence Mann. Do you know who that is?
I do not.
Terrence Mann was the original Javert in Les Mis. He was the original Beast in Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's kind of Broadway royalty, and he was playing Mr. Higgins. And I was just so thrilled, to be finally in this show. And I remember, at one point when Eliza comes down the stairs and she's sort of transformed, right? She's Cinderella going to the ball, and I would burst into tears like every time. And finally, the director and Terry were like, yeah, you've got to be kind of farther off stage for this scene, because everybody was watching me burst into tears as opposed to Eliza walking down the stairs. Because I just couldn't believe I was finally in that show,
Oh, that's beautiful. That the emotion behind that is beautiful. We could just end right there.
I know. And scene.
Right. But so let's talk about, so you've really, really done the thing. We talk about, following your passions and your dreams on this show quite often, but you've actually really, really done it. And now you're teaching others to do it. So how stressful is it with the audition process and the rejection? Do you have to have an insane amount of self-esteem to face all of that?
Yes, you do. But here's the thing. There are pros and cons to every dream, right? Mm-hmm. And it's what you're able to tolerate. And dreams change, it's like sometimes you may have a dream for something, but it's just the cons to the dream are more than you can really sustain and have a healthy, happy life. The show business side of stuff is very tough. It's a little easier if you're in theater as opposed to film and TV, because you don't have the fame situation. People don't know who you are necessarily. But then on the other hand, you can't sustain a career just doing theater. It doesn't pay enough. But it's tough. You do have to have a tough skin. I remember a professor of mine back in the day saying that actors really need to be some of the healthiest people mentally, because you have to be able to deal with 90% rejection all of the time, and understand that that's just forces outside of your control. And it's a necessary evil of that industry, and I've been on both sides of it. I've been a director and I've been an actor, and, it was so hard, being the director, it was so hard to be able to make those choices. And you wanted to reach out to everybody and say, it's not you personally, and you're amazing and you're talented and, you're all of these things, but it's just not gelling. The cast, when you put together a cast, it has so much to do with like a love match, right? The chemistry that comes. I mean, you can meet, 10 people and they all look alike, but for some reason you click with one of them. And that's the same thing in this industry. And so it's putting together people that click.
Yeah, that's got to be tough having been on the other side and understanding all the feelings and the hopes and the emotions involved. But at the end of the day, it's what's best for the show. And you kind of just, I guess you kind of feel who's synergistic with who else and what works, just like you just said.
Yeah. I mean, actors are, in the true sense of the word, actors and directors, actors mostly, but are vessels. It's like, you are there for the work to flow through you to tell the story. And it's hard sometimes to not take that personally, but if you are there to legitimately serve these stories, you're a storyteller and you're there to tell the story. It's not about you. And if you stay focused on that, it helps you stay a little more balanced.
For someone who's spent so much time in New York, I noticed you've got significant Florida connections, which is great for the Florida Fresh Mix podcast.
Yeah.
You've been a visiting professor at University of Miami, also at Auburn. You got your BFA. Now, what does BFA stand for?
It's a Bachelor of Fine Arts.
Fine Arts. I could have guessed that. That was stupid of me. If I had just taken a second to take a best guess. And so you got your BFA in musical theater from Florida State University, and you're currently living in Delray, correct?
Yes.
And you are teaching courses at FAU, that's Florida Atlantic University, at the Dorothy F. Schmidt College of Arts and Letters. So you've got significant Florida contacts. When did you get here, and why?
And why? Well,
yeah, why?
Why? I don't know. Well, I am a native Floridian. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, and went to Florida State, like you said, and then right after I graduated from Florida State, $3, 2 bags, 1 me, I moved to New York and had a grand old time there, being the struggling actor. It's so funny. It's like, when you say you're a working actor, that can mean that you work like gangbusters for 1 year and then you save up your money because the next year you don't know what's going to happen. And you might get 1 gig that next year, and then, so it was tough, but, I was in New York for quite some time, mainly doing musical theater, but I started really, really, really falling in love with Shakespeare. And I was part of this group at Michael Howard Studios in New York City, called the Shakespeare Workout. And I was with them for 5 years and just really was hungry for more. At that point in my career, I had done a lot of the musicals that I had wanted to do, that I loved. And I don't know, I was just hungry for more and more training. You have to, acting isn't a cure. It's like, you don't go to a class and like you graduate from the class and go, oh, I'm an actor, right? It's like you always have to be taking classes and stretching and learning and growing until you die, practically. So I went to DC to get my MFA in acting in DC at the Shakespeare Theater, and love that. And then DC is a mecca of theater. It's amazing. So I did a lot of work in DC and loved that. And then, I just hit that point in my life where my parents started not doing so great. And so I was coming home more and more often, home meaning Jacksonville, where my parents still lived, more and more often to check on them and to help them. And I got an opportunity to teach adjunct for a semester at Jacksonville University, which was a mile from my parents' house. And so that enabled me to be home, and kind of be with them. But then the plan was to get my parents sort of taken care of, kind of settled, get some plans in place, and then go back. But when I was home, my niece, who I'm very, very close to, she is practically more my sister, she was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And she had just had her first child.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And it was really tough. And I just kind of went, well, I can't go back now. I wanted to be there and be with my family, as long as I could. So I kind of moved home for a bit and started the academic career.
Now, you just mentioned something that made me want to ask you your opinion on something. You were talking about kind of the constant, never-ending process of learning to improve your acting skills, et cetera. Do you believe in the concept that there are some natural-born actors who are just born that way and they really don't have to put any time into it? And I'll give you my question is like analogous to like Michael Jackson, who is probably one of the greatest dancers of our time and never took a dancing class. He was just born with that talent. Do you think that there's something analogous or there's any actor that you can think of where it's the same type of natural born talent? Or do you believe that for anybody, it really is something that you need to hone and work on throughout your career?
Well, I think that people do have natural born talents, but Michael Jackson was surrounded by a family of talent.
True.
And he was the baby. And so he had all of these, older siblings that were teaching him. So he might have been able to pick it up quicker because he had natural born talent, but he didn't just be able to dance without somebody teaching him how first.
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way.
Because he was surrounded by a family of talent, he was not shy about it. That's just what they did, right? Mm-hmm. But if you take your typical child that is growing up in, middle America, and mom's a teacher and dad works at a bank and there's no performing arts in the house, and then all of a sudden you expect some child to dance for grandma, that kid's going to run to their room and yell no, because that's not part of their world. So I think, children are so influenced by what is in their, surroundings, which is why so many theaters have educational outreach programs to get children into theater, to see these stories, to teach them workshops so that they are not shy to speak in front of other people and all of that. But yeah, I think that people have a natural aptitude for things. I think we sort of fall into, where our aptitude leads us, but we still need skill. We still need to know how to manage those skills. We still need training. Did you watch Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
It's on my list. It looks fantastic because I love that actress. I forget her name at the moment, but I think she's fantastic. I loved her from House of Cards and
Brosnahan.
Yes. I think it's Rachel, maybe.
Rachel Brosnahan. Yeah. So she in the show, she's naturally funny, right? She has an aptitude. She's very, very funny, and she's always joking around. She's always giving the bridesmaid speech and the whatever. And then she goes to this comedy club and she just starts venting and it's hilarious. And so she starts working with this manager, but it's very brilliant. In a couple of the episodes, it goes through a series of her working on a 10-minute set, which is a standard comic thing that all comics need to have. They need to have the standard 10-minute set. And, once again, naturally funny, but where that 10-minute set started and how she worked with professionals and honed it and honed it and honed it until it became the 10-minute set, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you can have an aptitude and a natural ability for something, but you still need constant, at least to me, in the performing arts. Now, I don't know about visual arts because I think that's a whole other, what is art and how does it speak to you versus what's coming out of the artist. And, but in the performing arts, I feel that you always need some kind of training, honing, coaching.
So that's a great segue into what you're doing at FAU. So I just wanted to talk quickly about, what subjects are you teaching, and is there a particular subject that you like teaching the most?
I teach in the Bachelor of Fine Arts and in the Master of Fine Arts programs at Florida Atlantic University. We have an MFA in acting, and then I've just created a BFA in musical theater. So I teach, I'm the Shakespeare teacher and the musical theater teacher there. So I'll teach scene study, musical theater scene study, auditioning, which are all acting classes, just with different material.
Okay. All right. Do you have a favorite, or are you just loving all of it?
I do genuinely love all of it. I really start, when I'm in Shakespeare mode, that's my favorite. And Shakespeare and musical theater really are the exact same thing. They're both heightened art forms, and they're both deal with meter and verse and rhythm. And so that there's a lot of parallels there, but I think it's, it's the one I'm teaching at the moment tends to be my favorite one.
That makes sense, right? Okay. So now I really want to dive into A Rhapsody and Blubber, which is your one-woman show that's opening up pretty soon on May 5th. So this interview is pretty timely. And you're playing 3 characters. I want to talk about those 3 characters. I want to talk about how this show came about. But the first thing I want to do is quote from the show, because it put a huge smile on my face. And I'm gonna read this whole thing to the audience. So bear with me for 1 minute. It's totally worth it. Okay.
Okay.
And this is gonna be. I'm not gonna try to do my own rendition. I'm just gonna read the words because I would be too nervous. I would feel like you'd be judging me. So here we go. Here we go. I am walking in the valley of the shadow of the whale, breathing only on the surface with an alien heartbeat that rises like the bubbles of air and krill. And poop. Whale poop is huge. I want to feel. A numbness coats me like blubber. A big blue blubbery numb blob. So what I need is for you, all of you. I need you to harpoon the hell out of me. Wow. That is funny and poignant and real all at once. I love it. And the poop, I mean, my little nephew would just crack up just at that word alone.
Oh, there's a lot of poop.
There's
There's a lot of poop in the show.
Well, as you point out in your show description, the blue whale is the largest animal that's ever lived on Earth, whether prehistoric or not. And that poop must be the size of a bus. So.
Yeah. Whale poop. One of the other things to say, whale poop goes everywhere. And the baby blue whale, she says that she loves poop because it goes everywhere, and she poops, and then the krill eat the poop, and then she eats the krill.
Also, I'm fascinated by, this is a one-woman show. I've never seen a one-person show. And when I think of a one-person show, I think of Just Jack from Will and Grace. So I'd be fascinated to see it, particularly because you play 3 different characters. So tell me how the show came about, because it's an interesting story, but I want to hear it from you.
In 2017, I was in Toronto taking this movement workshop. A colleague had recommended me to this woman named Erica Batdorf, who is an internationally known, well, I didn't know this at the time. I thought, she was this movement person, right? But turns out she's an internationally known performance artist and director. But I was in this workshop with her, doing these crazy, weird movement things. And I threw my back out, like really bad. It was the weekend. It was cold. It was rainy. And I needed to just be able to kind of keep moving to keep my back from stiffening up, but also some place where I could get out of the rain and sit. And so I went to the Royal Ontario Museum, and they had this exhibit there about a blue whale that had washed ashore, which is rare because blue whales are very hard for scientists to do a lot of research on because, we lost so many of them, during the whaling industry days because blue whales sink. They don't float. So when they die, they sink down. So it's, hard to sort of find one and dissect it and do all the things that scientists do. Well, this one, I think, had gotten stuck in some ice or something. They took the skeleton, like you see the dinosaurs in museums, and they took the skeleton and put the skeleton back together. And it was the most, you people say, oh, it's the largest creature on Earth. And
how big did this room have to be?
Yeah. I mean, it was massive. It was like the entire basement of the Royal Ontario Museum was dedicated to this exhibit. And this whale was like 100 feet long. I mean, a T-Rex is like a fraction of that. And they had all of these, they had a cast of her heart where children could crawl through the arteries.
No way.
That's how big, the heart of this whale was. And then they had, all the different whale facts and, all the museum-y, stuff about it, but it was very interactive. And the lighting and everything, it was very calm and spiritual in this space. And I was at this one station where you could listen to the blue whale. And I was standing there, and there's only 2 headsets. And so there was me, and then there was this little boy. He was about like 5 years old. And we both had our headsets on, and we're listening, and we're listening, and we're listening, and nothing. We can't hear anything. So he and I are both, fiddling with the knob, and maybe it's the volume and, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden at the exact same time, we both heard it kind of goes like, right? Like it's like this crazy vibration sound. And he and I both grabbed hands and like stared at each other like, whoa, like that was amazing.
Oh, wow. Just like spontaneously, like you had a moment together?
Yes, it was because we had waited so long to hear it, because it sounded at first like it was broken. And then, the more I read in the exhibit and stuff, that so much of whale call, especially with blue whales, that humans can't hear it.
Oh, okay.
And so in order for us to hear it, they have to slow it down immensely so that the pitch changes so that we can actually hear their sonar, their call, their song, right? And then I just started thinking, because we're touching on all the great things, Gerard. So talking about like my family, kind of going back to the caregiving thing, I had lost all my family. So they all passed away. And it just made me think, it's like, okay, well, just because we can't hear it, like the whale call, doesn't mean it's not being heard. And it reminded me of like prayer in a way. And I'm not a religious person. This isn't, going in that direction, but it, in the sense of when you lose somebody and you want to talk to them again. And, how people will, pray, or they will want to talk to family members that are gone and these kinds of things. And then it started leading me down this rabbit hole of, psychoacoustics, the right? That we've actually have recorded the sound of the Big Bang, and the sound of the Big Bang is the right? And it's this slow pulsing I mean, I'm doing it really fast, and then string theory all of a sudden so basically like the vibrations of the universe and how heartbeat, and if you slow down the blue whale call, it sounds like heartbeat. Like if you really slow it down, it just sounds like somebody's heartbeat. And then I thought, well, wow, blue whales, and they can talk to whales in other oceans, right? So they can, like, if a family member.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Now it's less now because of all the noise pollution in the oceans that we have now. That's a whole other play. But, their sound can travel thousands of miles. So, mama whale could be in, the Pacific Ocean, and papa whale could be in the Indian Ocean or something, right? So the idea was that they can call these massive, thousands of miles into like another sea, right? Into another ocean. And we can't even hear it, but they're communicating. And so it just started making me think about other realms, other, parallel universes, all of those, like, went down like a big rabbit hole with all of that.
Sounds like you had like a spiritual explosion of thoughts and interconnectedness. Did this happen that day, or did all of this happen over time? Because I'm trying to bridge the gap between this experience you had, because you injured yourself, and you had and then you have this fascination with whales, and then all of a sudden you're writing a play. So help me.
Yeah, well, I was at this, the big, epiphany moment, happened at this museum where I started kind of making this connection with, like, whale calls, right? Whale sound. When I got back, I just started to write, and then I started researching. I started researching string theory. I started researching, like I said, psychoacoustics and the history of, like, chant. You know how monks will chant?
Mm-hmm. Well, when you went home, that's what I was. that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, and yoga, like all of these things, I just started researching them, and I've just kept finding, like, just all of these parallels, and I just kept writing, and then a lot of times, this is a new process to me. I've always been handed a script and told what to do, and so I didn't necessarily consider myself a writer, but what I would do is I would take just ideas of things and just kind of improvise, just kind of start talking. And then characters just kind of bubbled up. The character that bubbled up out of me was a baby whale, the baby blue whale that's lost its mother. It's trying to find its mother. And then the other character that came up, which was really weird, I was just sitting there, I was writing and having a cup of coffee. And I just started, I'm not going to say like channeling, because that's just like, woohoo. But this old man character just kind of bubbled up out of the ether, and I started writing as if I was this old man talking about, being on his own for the first time and losing his wife. And so I had these two characters. I had the whale and I had the old man, but I didn't know how to tie them together because I needed the person that's talking to you right now, the one that's done all the research, right? I needed the kind of like the playwright's voice
to kind of tie it all together.
Yeah. And so then I've got like, I went through like 15 drafts of the thing. I had, this shaman, then I had a scientist. And then finally I just kind of went something closer to home, which is this middle-aged woman who is dealing with raising a family and all this caregiving. And her teenage son is the one that kind of enlightens her about the sound because, she's stressed. And so she's doing yoga and she hates it. She starts making connections based on this sound, right? But it's also like, it's deep, but it's also very funny. There's a lot of poop throughout the show is one of the themes.
Oh, it's also one of the themes. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's, because we have like, you're in the shit, right? Mm-hmm. When things are not going well. So there's a literal poop thing. And then there's a figurative poop theme. Mm-hmm. One of the characters is, the woman is dealing with a toddler that she's potty training, a mother who's under hospice, who is incontinent. And then there's the old man who talks about that he's sitting in a diaper and then there's the baby whale that then poop is awesome, and the baby whale loves poop. So that's a little humorous thread that runs through the thing. But, just truth is funny. So when you find, life, like we always have, like there can be some, like the thing that you read earlier, it's like there's can be depth and stuff, but there's always also lightness and humor in the piece. So yeah, the three characters finally came to the surface, and transitioning
Pun
from one
intended.
to the yeah transitioning from one to the other has been a labor of love. It's been a challenge figuring that out, but fast forward several years later, so I stayed in contact with the Erica, who was the woman that did the workshop in Toronto when I originally went and saw The Whale. And she reached out, and she had read my piece, and she asked if I had a director, and I said no, and she said that she would love to direct it. So that's sort of a happy accident that she was the reason why I ended up there to see this exhibit, and now she's the one directing the piece. So that's a real
Wow.
cool full circle kind of thing. And yeah, I hope that you can come see it.
We're going to put all of the information in the show notes, but this is happening in Boca, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in Boca Raton at Theater Lab, which is our professional resident theater company focused mainly on new works. They are on the FAU campus, but it's very easy to get to. Parking is easy. And because it's a solo piece, it's being done without an intermission. It's about 75 minutes long. So, for those of you that don't like to sit through long theater, it's like 75 minutes long. And it's also, I should make sure I state that it's a developmental workshop. So this is not the world premiere of it. It will be a full production, right? With lights and costumes and sound and, all of the feels and everything, but we're still developing it. So this is why we really need an audience, because a lot of it, like the baby blue whale, she talks to the audience. She teaches them how to speak whale, right? And so
it's interactive.
Yeah, and so having
that
audience there to play with is so key in the development of it. What stays, what goes. Do we add stuff? Do we cut stuff?
I was going to ask you about that, because it's right. So you're starting kind of like the sneak peek phase, but then you're also getting feedback. It's like you were saying, like, before about with comedians and with their 10-minute set, that's comedians still do that. They go and they travel everywhere and they see how the audience reacts, and they don't do their Netflix special until it's ready to go and they've gotten all the feedback from the audience. And so it sounds like that's what you're preparing to do, something similar. And just so you know, I grew up in Boca, and my family is in Del Rey.
Oh, no
right
way.
By you. Yeah. So when my parents listen to this, they're going to probably reach out to me and say, "Hey, perfect excuse to come and see your parents." And I'm going to say, what?
Where are you now?
I'm in Miami Beach.
Oh, okay.
But I do go up there pretty frequently, because I do love my family, and the producer of this show, my sister, she's in Boynton. So yes, I end up going up there.
Well, hey, a shout out to the Bright Line, because I just took the Bright Line from Boca down to Miami to go to the Arsh Center to see Next to Normal that Zoetic Stage did. And what a great experience. It was so easy.
I haven't been on there yet. I hear nothing but amazing things. Like, people are just like, you got to get on the Bright Line.
Yeah. And they also have like a premiere car that, depending on the time that you go, isn't that expensive. And it's full bar included, snacks, like good snacks. Like, it was like, so we made a whole event out of it.
Yes. So shout out to Brightline and helping people get around Florida better. Florida, New York is much more well known for being able to get around on the cheap. Florida still has some work to do. But so what was your motivation in writing this play? Without giving away too much, what do you want the audience to get out of it? What was your motivation?
I really want the audience to be able to find ways of connecting. connecting to, family that is gone, connecting to family that lives far away. Heartbeat is in this a lot, and how that connects us all, and how, everything is pulsing just on different frequencies. And if we tune into listening for that and listening to our own rhythms and finding connections from a different way. I mean, it's really the basis of all art and all science. Like, we're all searching for these answers. It's just my voice in that quest, I guess. It's hoping to, bring some humor to some very deep subjects, but the humor is always the conduit to let us in.
Humor is how we deal with some of our toughest subjects and push through them. Yeah.
The humor is our way in, but, helping people possibly work through grief, work through caregiving, work through being alone, maybe for the first time, but yet working through that, but yet feeling connected, that they're not disconnected, that, these people aren't gone or you're not alone. You just have to learn how to listen to find the connection.
Do you find one of these characters to be more challenging to play than the others? I mean, for God's sake, the old man is old and it's a man, and then one is not even a human. So do you find one more challenging than the other?
No, you know what? It depends on the day. Some days I feel so much more connected to one character than the other. And it's probably only something I can feel, not necessarily something you could tell or see. But I've become very familiar with them, and it's their essence. I'm not trying to, the whale definitely has her signature way of moving. There's some physical attributes that they have that distinguish them, but the idea for the audience is for them they get the essence of this character pretty quickly. And that doesn't have to be mimicry or trying to be super realistic, because I can't really be a whale.
Right.
As much as I would like to.
Right. Although being a whale does get you Oscar wins, apparently, these
days. Correct. But, it's interesting because, I'm a big person. And so when people think of the Blubber, they think, oh, is this a show about being overweight? And I'm like, no, Blubber is, for whales, Blubber is an organ. It's not fat.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. And Blubber is also the wah-wah, the cry, right? Blubbering.
Right.
And then the woman does talk about how, when she's stressed, like she eats all the food off of her kids' plates and the chocolate pudding off of her dad's tray. And, there's a little bit of mentioning of stress eating and the feeling of numbness, being coated in a protective layer of numb. I think too, like, I didn't intend to write a solo piece, but I've always been interested in it. And it just, I don't know, it just sort of, it came to life. And my whole life, I was sort of surrounded by very traditional theater. And as I've gotten older, I've been much more interested in pushing the boundaries of some things. And so this is kind of like my new thing. I've got some other works on the line coming up that I'm writing that are in the very beginning stages, but it's exciting. And tagging back to the audition thing, it's like, oh, I already got the job. So
well, I think it sounds to me that, the whole process happened organically. I mean, the impetus for it, happened by accident with an injury, and then you felt inspired, and then you did your research, and then you kind of had a stream of consciousness phase where, just how do these ideas come out? And if it ends up being a one woman show, maybe that's just the way it was intended. And you're the best person to express all these dimensions of your idea. Add on to that it's a new approach for you to do something as a one-person show, which is exciting and scary at the same time. It sounds like this is the way it was meant to be, Lynn. So I'm looking forward to everybody go and see this play if you're in the area or on vacation or whatever it is. I look forward to being in the audience, and I look forward to hopefully giving you my feedback, because I will not hold back, girl.
I know, but Gerard, that's exactly what I need. I need people from whether it's so great that you were involved in theater and acting, because you can relate to some of, the technical aspects of what the piece, is about, but just any impressions that people get, even down to, I got really confused here. That's very helpful. Or, oh, I made this connection with this and this and this, that's all feedback is welcome. That's how it grows. So I hope as many people that can, and it's only $25. So you'll spend more going to the movies,
especially these days. That's true. So listen, I'm very excited about your show. I love your spirit, the passion you have for this medium, and I'm excited to see how it ends up, visually, and how are you going to do this, and just the transformation between the characters. I think it's very, very exciting and interesting. But before we go, I want to ask you two random questions. First of all, what is your favorite Shakespearean play?
I'm one of those weird people that really love the history plays.
That's not weird.
I'm going to say King Lear.
I don't think I've read that one.
He's not really like history play, and I just finished directing last year Richard III, which was a blast. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go with King Lear.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm also gonna have to check out My Fair Lady. Clearly, my other question is: do you have a quick, embarrassing story about where something went wrong during a performance for you that you could share?
Oh, geez. Where do I start? So I was in this production, this is a while ago, but it was very funny, of The Foreigner. And, the character I was playing walks on stage and she delivers this plate of scrambled eggs to, this one character. Well, stage food, usually is, it's not going to be necessarily eggs. They had taken some peaches and they chopped the peaches up because they're super easy to eat, they don't go bad, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Well, whoever was in charge of props that day had just dumped a can of peach juice also on the plate. So when I brought it out on stage, I said, well, here's your eggs. And the plate tipped and the whole plate of quote unquote eggs and juice just all went right in this guy's lap.
Oh my gosh. Which was not supposed to happen at all, right?
No. And I just said, well, they're a little runny.
Oh, you improvised. Look, nice. Not good.
Brought
good,
the house down.
Good catch. Good save.
It was just like, what? And then, then this poor guy who's the lead has now got an entire front of his costume just drenched with this peach juice for the next 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there's a ton. That's the beauty of live theater is, can always guarantee something is going to screw up at some point.
That was a good one. Now, did he, get upset with you at all afterwards, or did you guys have a laugh about it?
Oh no, we were all cracking up. At one point, they're like, that was funny. How do we keep it? And I'm like, yeah, no, that was so stressful.
That's funny. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to tell you how much I've really, really thoroughly enjoyed this. I feel like I could talk to you forever. Out of curiosity, where is your favorite place to go in Florida?
I have several. My heart tends to lie in that old Florida oak trees, pine trees, palm trees mix. Kind of have you been to Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings' home site in Cross Creek?
I have not.
It's beautiful. It's stunning. Yeah, I love that. I go to the Keys all the time. I'm down in Key West all the
Love the
time.
Keys. Yep.
And the Everglades. I've actually hiked through the Everglades.
Yes, I've been airboating. It's great.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say I picked three. I picked three.
Those are three great picks. Yeah, well done. And so we talked about the show, which once again is called Blue, a Rhapsody in Blubber. And so we'll share all the links in the show notes. Aside from that, which is opening, we'll get our first peeks at it on May 5th, I believe. Is there anything else that you want to promote or share with us while you're on the mic with me, including where we can find you on social media?
Well, my website is lynismcnuts.com. My Instagram is the same, Lynn is McNuts.
I see the play on words there with your last name. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. Oddly, Lynn McNutt was taken. What?
Really? That's odd. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, okay. So, yeah, but check it out. I'm I'm going to be working on some other stuff, and then also, can follow Blue and wherever she ends up. I'm hoping to get some producers in the audience to help. I've got a few coming, which is fantastic. But to help the piece, grow and thrive and have a long life, traveling around.
Mm-hmm.
Or I should say migrating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Talking with you has brought back so many good memories and so many good feelings. And I really appreciate your perspective on so many things. You're so ebullient and positive. And yeah, I hope that people draw so many different positive things from this conversation, and really wishing your show and you in general the best of success. So thank you again for giving us your time.
Well, thank you. What a way to start off my day talking to you, Gerard. This has been fun.
So, Fresh Mixers, as you can see, that interview made me so happy. I had a big smile on my face the entire time. It's hard for me to kind of pinpoint one thing to talk about in this fresh take, but there is something that really does stand out to me, and that word is execution. Because it's not enough just to have, a great idea. Sometimes we have a great idea when we're sleeping, we might jot it down, or we might just forget it. She had a revelation while she was at this whale exhibition. She took a concept that was randomly inspired by this whale experience, and she took the time to see it to fruition. She, honed those ideas into what ended up being a one-woman show, which wasn't her original intent, but that was just organically how it happened, right? So now she's putting it in front of an audience to get their feedback on it, and then to further fine-tune it. What we discussed in this interview, which I really loved, is from conception and the whole journey, which hasn't even ended yet for her, the whole journey from conception to execution. And I loved it. And it just inspires me, and it should inspire you. People have great ideas every day, but the people that you see that are doing big things on TV and, are in magazines and on highlighted in the news, and all these millionaires and all these wonderful things, all the tech and all the amazing products that we have, it's because someone had an idea one day. Either they invented something that didn't exist before because there was a hole in the market, or they took something and they made it better. But I guarantee you that what she's created here in the form of Blue, a Rhapsody in Blubber, I can pretty much guarantee that didn't exist before. That is her baby. That is her idea. And she executed. Anything worth doing takes time and patience. And we will see the final end product of her one-woman play. I really hope that I get to see it. And it will, I guarantee, I have full faith that the final product will reflect all of the time and dedication that she put into this journey. Many people are going to be proud of her, but I bet you no one's going to be prouder of her than herself. So those are my thoughts for today. Thank you so much to Lynn McNutt for just inspiring me so much and just sharing so many common things. Look, I've never done anything professionally on any kind of level like she has, and I don't have any kind of her expertise, but I just kind of was like a fanboy, just like soaking it all in. So I'm pretty jealous that she's been able to make a living out of it. So that's my fresh take, and I hope that it inspired you. Take that dream and execute, y'all. For details and show notes about today's show and our guest, go to freshmixpodcast.com. The Florida Podcast Network has a closed Facebook group exclusively for superfans of their shows. Just search for FPN Insiders on Facebook to leave us comments, or you can just complain about how, well, you know what? Once again, I'm not going to complain about Florida. I'm going to give Florida props because there is something happening here in Miami Beach that makes me so happy. There's this Friday festival. It's an outdoor street food festival called Smorgasburg right here on Lincoln Road in Miami Beach. And I love it because there are only a certain number of places in America, including Florida, where you can find such a diversity of cultures and food. So you go and people, from these restaurants from all over the world, they bring their food. I'm talking about Lebanese food. I'm talking about Mexican food. I'm talking about Turkish food. I'm talking about all kinds of amazing Asian fusion. Oh, it's absolutely delicious. So now this has become like a Friday night ritual for my girl and me. We taste something different every week. Anyway, I'm getting hungry thinking about it. Be sure to visit all of the great shows on the Florida Podcast Network. You can find them at floridapodcastnetwork.com. Keep catching Who's Fresh in the Florida Mix with Florida's Fresh Mix podcast.